So we are going to get started with some announcements. So, oh, wait. I'm going to do the agenda first, I guess, and then announcements. So today we are talking about social identities in the workplace. And so we are going to start off with an activity, a reflection, and then we will have 2 workshops later on today. So we have an identity handball and code switching with Monica Hickson, who is one of our guest presenters. And so she will be arriving sometime soon if you see someone you don't recognize. And then we will be having a privilege and power activity that I think Mel and I are leading. And so we will break out into groups, so you'll get to choose between those 2. We will be having lunch around 12:15. We'll be having chelas today, which I'm very excited about. And then we'll be talking about conflict management. And then we'll break into cohort and reflection time. So for announcements, just a reminder, everyone needs to sign in. If you came in this morning and did not sign in, please go back to the table by the elevators and sign in right now. As there are a lot of you, and I know sometimes I see you, but I can't keep track from week to week just by knowing whether you were here or not. So it's really important for you to sign in, especially if you're getting paid for your time, your hours. We need to make sure that you were here, and our sign-in is the official verification of that. So please make sure you're signing in. Morgan's going to come up and talk about Midsummer Celebration in a second, but in terms of deliverables, so the assignments, just a reminder that you can keep turning them in. They're on Google Classroom. For gift cards, there's been a lot of issues with gift cards. So one, if you have not gotten one yet, please come see me at the table where we checked in. There were some of you who received only a $25 gift card to start. We have that list, and I will be coming to find you. So some of you still need another $25. Some of the gift cards have been having fraud issues. So on the back of the card, if you got a gift card, there is a number you can call to check the balance. If it is not what it's supposed to be, please bring the card back to us, and then we can go ahead and reissue a card for whatever the difference of the amount is. So if you haven't activated your card or you haven't used it yet, please make sure you call the number on the back, make sure it's the appropriate amount, and reach out to us if it is not. Are there questions about gift cards? Okay, hopefully we get it all settled soon. So PD next week, there's a couple of different things going on. So we will be talking about financial planning. And so for that, we're going to be doing some budgeting exercises with Excel. So please bring a laptop or mobile device with you, preferably a laptop. Hopefully you have one at home, or SummerWorks provided them if you didn't have one at home, so hopefully everyone has one. If you cannot, then we will be hopefully be able to share with a friend. But please make sure you bring them next week. We will send a reminder email. But we also will have some guests at next week's session. So the University of Michigan Credit Union is coming to do a presentation. And then we also have guests from the Wilson Foundation, and they are our funders for SummerWorks. They're the ones who give the money to make this program happen. And so we just want to be mindful that they're going to be here, and you're not like, who are these random people in the corner? But also, to try and be engaged as much as you can, and, make sure that if you have time, you show your appreciation for them and getting able to be a part of the program and whatnot. So we will introduce them at next week's session. So.
All right, so community guidelines. We, as SummerWorks, are a community, and so we want to make sure that we are always taking care of each other and making everyone feel good and a very welcomed part of that community. That's especially relevant today because we're going to be talking about social identities in the workplace. And we want to encourage everyone to think critically about how they show up in the workplace in their own social identities, how they interact with other folks who may have the same or different social identities. But to be able to do that authentically, this has to be a safe and a brave space. Can someone tell me what they think that means to be a safe and a brave space? Oh, Autumn, yes. I have a microphone somewhere. Do we have microphones, friends? She's right there.
Sorry, hands up.
All right, Autumn, tell me about a safe and a brave space.
To say what you have to say in a respectful manner and to be respected and like receive positive like thoughts and criticism towards it, whatever you said.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. There's a beam. Did you hand it off to someone else or? Okay, perfect. Just want to make sure no one else want to talk before I ran my mouth off, but that is exactly right. And I love your use of the word positive there because we don't always have to agree with each other and we don't always have to have the same experience as someone else, but we have to be positive and we have to be open and we can disagree in a positive way and we can be receptive and still disagree and still be open-minded to what someone else's experience is. Thank you so much for sharing, Autumn. And then if you want to pass that, yeah, you got it. Perfect. All right, so just like the wonderful Autumn said, we have to be respectful, and that's respecting yourself and respecting others. We have to celebrate our differences, so we want to remember to speak in I statements and speak from your own experiences. So even if you have the perfect example of whatever we're talking about, but it was your second cousin, Jenny, and it wasn't you, or it was your coworker, Mark, not you. We want to try and keep that in and just let other folks share their own experiences just in this space, just to be kind of mindful and just always speak from that first person and be kind to each other and be kind to yourselves. So we always want to prioritize that kindness, and especially when we're talking about things that are vulnerable or things that are maybe personal lived experiences, we always want to be kind and be empathetic to one another. You know, even if that's not your experience, try and think, okay, what would it be like to feel that? And just act in that way. Then also challenge ideas respectfully. And so there's intent versus impact. Who can tell me what that whole idea is, intent versus impact? I'm gonna pick on somebody. Who do we have? Moniba, can you tell me about intent versus impact once we run you a microphone?
And so when we say intent, like we might be meaning to say something, but sometimes we don't really realize how exactly that might affect another person. And so we might be meaning to say something that we think is really important. We think that it's okay to say, but sometimes someone else might be hurt by that. So that's why it's so important that we actually think about how other people might take what we're saying.
All right, exactly. So remember, you can have the best of intentions, like Moniba was saying. You can have that intent can be 100% pure, 100% positive, but sometimes you don't know how the other person is gonna respond or how that's gonna impact them, especially if you don't have that same shared or lived experience, because you just don't know. You've never lived in their shoes. So just being open and being mindful of that difference. And then be open to whatever you feel comfortable. So I would love it if everyone here felt empowered and comfortable sharing, but that's not gonna be everybody's experience, and that's okay. So in whatever way that you're able to engage in the conversation, even if you're just taking notes and responding to things in your head or writing down, that's fine. But if you're comfortable speaking out, that's fine too. So whatever way that you're able to be open and participatory in this is fantastic. Just make sure it's in a way that's taking care of yourself and you're feeling comfortable. And if you need any help or support with that, just let us know. We're sprinkled about. We will help. And then last but not least, take care of yourself. So that's taking breaks, sharing with the group or not sharing with the group. If this feels really heavy and you need to talk to your success coach afterwards, your career advisor afterwards, that's great too. Just take care of yourself and make sure that you're feeling safe and comfortable, and never be afraid to step away if you need to just take a step back. what questions can I answer about our community guidelines, or what did I miss with our community guidelines? Fabuloso. Aha. All right, let's talk about a little bit of professionalism. Okay, so PD, professional development, yes. So we want this to be a professional space, and everyone is getting paid to be here, even folks that don't have internships, you are getting a stipend. So everyone here is technically at work. So I don't want that to feel like it's a drag or uncomfortable, but we would love it if you could treat it like a job. I mean, I'm not even kidding. I love coming to my job every day, but if I wasn't able to show up, I would send a message to Kathleen. I would send a message to Mel. If I was running late, I would also say that. And, you know, I'm not going to be on my phone texting. I'm not going to be a stick statue not doing anything, but I'm going to be mindful of other people's time, what other people are doing. But that being said, engagement looks really different for everyone. Some folks need a laptop to go along with what we're saying, go along with the slides, take notes. That's fine. Some people take notes on their phone. We've had folks that like to draw, like to knit while they're focusing, because it's just how they best process information. It's just how that showing up looks to you. Professionalism doesn't look one way, but if you find yourself needing more support or wanting to explore alternative ways of engagement, just let us know. But just being mindful of how you're engaging and how you're showing up to your job, but hopefully a fun job. And then that just goes right into our tech policy. Just like at work, you definitely have technology at work. I don't think there's a single intern here that's not using some type of tech at their job. Now that I said that, someone's gonna correct me, but that's fine. But so tech is definitely a part of our work life, but just being mindful, again, you know, we're not on Facebook. People don't use Facebook. What are we using? TikTok? We're in the little Dancy dance? Yeah. So none of that business. Of course, during lunch breaks, please be on whatever you want to be on. That's great. But just being mindful of when we're in this space, we're technically working, we're being paid to be here. Please show up in whatever way you can. And then be present and be respectful. That can look really different, like I said, for lots of different folks. And however you need to show up is great for you. But for example, you know, we don't want you to be chatting with your friends, writing notes. Do people write notes anymore? I don't know. I think we should bring that back. But being present in that way, and you know, for example, if you're up all night, you didn't get any rest, and you need to lay your head down and take a beat, that's fine. But just like if you were at a job and you couldn't show up, you need to communicate that with your supervisors, your team, and that's us. So if you can't show up 100% for any reason, just let us know and we will accommodate you. But if you're not showing up in a way that is professional and you're not communicating with us, all we see is that lack of professionalism. We don't know the story unless you tell us. Does that make sense? 5 by 5. All right, wonderful. Take us there, Mel.
Let's get into it. Good morning, angels. All right. Social identities are groups based on physical, social characteristics of individuals, right? Sometimes they're clear and obvious. You can tell by looking at someone, you can make an assumption by looking at someone what kind of social identities they may have. And sometimes they're unclear or invisible, right? Other times, they are used to categorize people, right? So like if you had to take a standardized test or fill out some kind of job application, sometimes they'll ask you to like disclose whether or not you have a disability or check like a certain gender or a certain racial identity or ethnic category, right? So we did the social identity wheel virtually. Some of us did like 5 PDs ago. We're gonna bring it back. We're gonna be talking about social identity again today, but thinking about it in terms of the workplace, all right? So, what are social identities? I'm gonna put them up here on this chart for you so you can see them. So we've got gender identity. I'm not gonna go through all of these, but they're all up here along with some examples. Sex or sex assigned at birth, which is not gender, right? Gender identity is how you choose to live and express yourself in whatever gender feels right to you. Sex is literally just your anatomy, right? It's your parts. They're not the same. We can talk about it more if you wanna chat. Race, racial identity, ethnicity is a group of people categorized by language, nationality, culture, religion, sexuality. Boop. We have religion or spirituality, right? Socioeconomic status or your class standing, ability or disability, age. So when we're thinking about age here, we're not talking about like your specific number, but more so like a cohort, right? So a group of people who have like relatively the same age as you and generally similar experiences based on their age. Nations of origin or citizenship, right? This is where you were born, where your families come from. A tribal or indigenous affiliation, right? So if you have any connection to a certain indigenous tribe or indigenous community. And then body size and body type, right? So as we move through the world, these are all things that people notice about us. Again, some invisible, some invisible. People make assumptions about us. We make assumptions about others, right? And so we're going to be unpacking that today through a little activity. Take us home, Tabitha. Let's do it. Get into it.
So most of the text boxes lined up. So this is an example of the activity you're all going to do. These are my exact answers. I'm gonna chat us through. So basically, I hate looking at this little screen. We're just gonna whoop right around. Okay. So we've got this chart with all of those and some more of the social identities that Mel was just describing for us. And what we're gonna do is, and you're not turning this in, this is just for you. Also, am I too far from the mic? Can we hear me? Can I get a thumb from the back, up or down? Thank you so much, appreciate you all. All right, beautiful. All right, so you fill it in, and then once you fill it in, you just go ahead and look through each of the columns and just put a checkbox in each of the social identities where that column resonates. So for me, my gender identity is female, and I'm really aware of that in my life and how I operate with other folks. So I put an X there. And then ones that I think least about, sexual orientation, heterosexuality, religion, Christian non-denominational. I don't think about those very much, so I put an X there. And just to call attention to some of the nuances, if you will, besties, of the group membership. So additional, yeah, some of these did not line up. I apologize. Yeah, some of these did not line up well. Okay, I apologize. So additional, that's just if there's a social identity here that, or is missing here that really is important to you, go ahead and pop that in. So if I put myself in your shoes, and I think about where I was at your age, something that I might have put there was my family status or my family type. I came from, or I guess I still come from, a really blended family, and that was a big part of my social identity, especially when I was younger. A little bit less so now that I'm old and whatever, but I digress. And so, yeah, this did not line up well. And then, for example, social class. So right now, I am middle class, but I put current there because if you go all the way across, my social class is something that I think about a lot when I'm engaging with my community, and it's also something that has the strongest impact in how I see myself. So growing up, I was not middle class, and that's something that has changed, but it's still something that I think about a lot, and I think about that a lot. Go ahead, Jonathan.
So you were noble?
I was noble?
Yeah.
I think I'm still pretty noble, but thank you. Oh gosh, the dad jokes. No, I was pretty, I hate the saying low social class. I hate it so much, but I was like low income, so like not middle class, if that makes sense. But I do love the noble. That was great.
Look, I just say I don't got it on.
I don't, I left my crown at home, but it's always in here. It's always in here, absolutely. And then other things, but yeah, I don't want to bore you all with going through my own stuff, but what questions can I answer about this activity? Everyone's got it. Wonderful. Okay, so we're going to go give you all some time to go through this, and then we'll go ahead and talk it out.
A thumbs up if we're feeling good, like we should. Love it. All right. You know it would not be a SummerWorks activity if we did not have a small group discussion so you could talk about what you just did. Am I right? I'm right. I ain't wrong, so I must be right. All right, so in your small groups, in your little pods, I want you to talk about these things with your group. As a reminder, You don't have to share everything if you don't want to, right? Only share things that you feel comfortable talking about. But reflect on what it felt like to do this activity. Reflect on your identities. Talk amongst yourselves. Give you like 10 minutes to do that. Sound good? Okay, how we doing? Good conversation happening, learning, feeling, live, laugh, loving. Okay, okay. I got some nods. All right, cool. So, boop. Let's bring it back. Let's talk about it. What did your group talk about? I will add an asterisk here. You don't need to share directly what anyone from your group said, but like general themes, right? What were some things y'all talked about? What did it feel like to do this activity? And then, why do you think we had you do this? Any of those. Choose your own adventure. I saw a hand. Go ahead, you got it. So Tabitha can see you and bring you the mic. Thanks, Maddie. Hello.
Hello. Hey, y'all. We talked mostly about what makes us comfortable at work or what doesn't, and a lot that came up is our gender, age, or our race/ethnicity.
Yeah. I will call on this table over here because I heard them also talking about age.
Yeah.
And someone had said that they probably won't think about their age much until they get older, which is absolutely fair, right? I think being young is a privilege. But I also wonder, like on the flip side of that, right? Like, how does age for you show up in your internships? Is that kind of what y'all were talking about, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like being like the youngest?
The youngest one, there's different conversations you can be passionate about. Like, if your supervisors or coworkers are a decade older than you, you guys talk about different things, or, you know, there's different conversations going on or different things that you know about.
Yeah, even just like different like interests, right? Or different like
Yeah.
life experiences.
Yeah. And we
Yeah.
were also talking about like what our work environment looks like if you're around like a lot of men, like our tables mostly are all women. We identify as women, so I don't know, that could play a factor, and as well as your race. If you don't see people that look like you at work, it can be different or challenging.
Yeah, exactly. I think that having a like minoritized identity, right, being like one of the
Yeah.
few women or one of the few young people or one of the few people of color,
Yeah.
right, in your workplace can be difficult to manage sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think also like y'all brought up intersectionality, right?
Uh-huh.
The ways that like, oh yeah, they weren't ready for it.
I know that's right.
Who wants to take a stab at what they think intersectionality is or what it means? Yes.
It's like when you don't have just like the effect of like female or male sex organ, you're like affected by both hormones, or you have like kind of both genitalia.
Oh, I think you're talking about intersex.
Oh, that's not
Which
what we're
is a
talking
thing.
about?
That is a thing, and that is the definition of that. Yes,
Oh.
we're talking about intersectionality.
Oh, never
So
mind.
intersex is a form of like, I guess, sex identification. Yes, which we can also talk about later if y'all want to talk about it. I know many things about many things, but intersectionality, right, is the ways in which our identities intersect. Ooh, it's like the answer's in the word, and compound, right? So if you are the youngest person in your workplace, also someone who identifies as a woman, right, in a predominantly like masculine workplace or field, right, and also a person of color, right, the way that you are going to experience your workplace, the way you're going to move through the world, the way people might look at you or treat you, right, is going to be quite different than someone who is someone else, who has different kinds of identities, right? And I think also like people sometimes patronize young people, right? They're like, oh, they wouldn't get it, they wouldn't understand, they just don't know, they haven't lived enough to get that, right? And so I think that age in that way can sometimes be used against y'all. But listen, y'all are gonna be taking care of us when me and Miss Morgan retire in Cabo. So, oh, Bora Bora, yeah, we're going to Bora Bora. I love that. So when we retire, that Social Security, if the world hasn't blown up by then. Okay, what else, y'all? Let me hear from another table. It's a joy to be alive. It's a joy to be alive. Nobody wants to look at me over here. Maria, what about y'all? What did your table talk about?
what we don't normally like think about. And like I'm not gonna share any specifics, but that's the main thing that got brought up a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Was this activity difficult for y'all to do? Yeah, give me like a meh, maybe. Did it take you like a minute to think about it? Was there some stuff where you were like, whoa, I've never thought about that before? Yeah? Z, do you want to share?
Feature.
There's something interesting our group talked about, like our social identity versus like our family group and how it changes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that like family is one of, like if you take a sociology class, right? Family is one of the forms of socialization, right? The way you learn about yourself, your role in the world, right? Whether you're like a sibling or a daughter or a son, right? You learn about yourself through your connection to your family. But as you get older, right, and you start to like, your family does not become the only like group of people you interact with, right? As you continue to grow up, you have like your coworkers or like your classmates, right? Or your friends. You start to see more and learn more, and sometimes you can change like your opinions or attitudes about the world, right? And sometimes, we were just talking about that in the car, it can be a cause of tension, right? Maybe you go back home and have to talk with your racist grandma about things at the dinner table on Thanksgiving, and then your mom gets mad at you and they ask what you're doing, getting a liberal arts degree, and then you say, I don't know, Mom, and then, is that just me?
That's too
Okay.
too loud for me. I can't.
They weren't ready. That one's for me and my therapist. Okay, anyway. But yes, there can definitely be tension as you start to realize that the identities of your parents are different, right? Or if you're like a first-generation college student or a first-generation American, right? And you feel like there might be pressure from your parents to like have a certain job or go into a certain field or act a certain way, right? Yeah. Who else? Back corner, what do we got? I'm looking right at you, Faith. Faith and friends, Faith and co. Somebody else at the table want to speak? Someone's got to speak. Come on.
I think one we can all kind of relate to is age. Definitely for me, for age, especially since we're like young adults, and in the workforce, most of the kind of adults are like 30 or older. So one of the things that I can speak about from experience is basically like in the workplace, when I pitch ideas or something, I have something to say, it might get just like, how do you call it? It's like, dismissed.
Yeah.
From the other coworkers that are much older and they have much more experience in the field or so. So that's something I think we could all probably relate to.
Absolutely. I think that like this is a very diverse group, which is super rad, right? Because there's space for y'all to learn and grow from each other. But I think one thing that y'all have in common is being like relatively the same age or close in age. And so I think that that's an experience that you all can relate to, right? People saying you don't know enough, you don't have enough experience, you know, you're just an intern, like whatever, right? And that being a barrier that you have to encounter. Absolutely. All right, besties. Okay. So, why did we make you do this? Because we love making you uncomfortable, even though change and growth does happen outside your comfort zone.
Oh, 1 second. I'm so
Yes.
sorry.
Was there a hand?
We got a little hand moment.
Yeah, take it away.
I think it's important to be aware of social identities, and if you understand like other people's social identities, how like they're very complex, and you can understand like why respect is like so important, and it can look different for everybody.
Absolutely, absolutely. I love the word complex, right? Like you had like a 10-minute conversation with the people at your table, right? But you still don't know everything about them. And there may be some things on their sheets that people didn't want to share with you. And that's okay, right? But I think that like it's important for us to acknowledge that people have identities that are quite visible, right? And some that aren't. And it's important for us to like be respectful and just kind of approach each situation with care, right? Because we just don't know what other people's experiences are and what they might be carrying with them. You don't know what you don't know. That's right. All right. Thanks for playing. What's next? It's still me. All right. So, we're going to talk about workplace communication. I'm going to pass it to Morgan.
All right, everyone. How are we feeling now? Let's see those thumbs. Okay, that's fine. We'll get here. We'll get there. All right. So you got a 5-minute break coming your way. So go take 5, okay?
All right, so we still have a couple minutes, but if you are interested in coming to option 2, privilege and power sale activity, we'll be on the 4th floor. Just take the elevator down, and it's the room immediately to the right. Can't miss it. So 4th floor. If you want to go to the second workshop option, first workshop option staying here in this room. So.
All right, friends. So everyone who is here wants to be here. Love that. Very excited. So Monica Hickson, who's one of our wonderful guest facilitators, has agreed to come back to do a diversity and code switching exercise. She's got some surprises, some fun planned for you all, and maybe even a little bit of learning she might sneak in there. Very sneakily, but it's going to require a lot of engagement. So if we need to do another stand-up self-hug, we can do it. I'll channel my inner Mel. We got this. But if you could give all of your attention to the wonderful Monica, she will take us there. And I will try and do technology. Share. Nope, not the wrong button. Haha. There you go. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Is this clicker working?
It
is?
does, yeah,
It
just
does?
a little
Okay. 'Cause I've been in places where it does not. Okay, cool. Hello, everyone. Now, you guys weren't exactly engaged. I was listening. You guys weren't exactly a very talkative group. But I have an exercise that's going to get you up, moving, and hopefully smiling and having some fun. That's why I got my little backpack here. So, my name is Monica Hickson. I will tell you a little bit of background about me, but it's always nice if people just ask me questions. So instead of the fun fact crap that a lot of people say, ask me a question that you want to know about me and anything that I do in my skill set or anything. Okay, that hand went up in the back, that young lady. You right there, yes. What do I do as a profession? I love that. A lot. I have 4 jobs. I work here at the University of Michigan. I'm an IT professional as well as a diversity, equity, inclusion consultant / facilitator. That's one job, believe it or not. Second job, I work at a group called Saterman Connect, where I am an instructional designer that does diversity, equity, inclusion work. Third job, I work at Washington Community College. Yeah. Fourth job, well, technically I've got 5, but I'll say the 4th job is another consulting group where I do a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion. So even though my real job is an instructional designer in the IT field, I wear more DEI hats than anything else because that's where my passion lies.
What's the 5th job?
Yes, it's the best job.
Where'd you go to college?
Undergrad, or I have like 5 degrees. So I started at a community college. And then I went to Wayne State. Yes, I have to do the Wayne State. And then I went to Central Michigan University for my master's.
Harrison?
Anybody? I think someone over here had a question. You have a question? You did? You had a question. Didn't you have a question? I know somebody had a question. Okay. Anyone else? I just expected a whole lot of questions. That's cool. Yes, you have another one. Yes. Oh, interesting. Yes, liberal arts, office information systems, because remember, I'm older than you, so this is where computers first came out. I was on the cutting edge a long time ago. Journalism, and then education, adult learning theories and concepts. I heard some say something about journalism.
Same question.
Wonder how that snuck in, huh? Anyone else? I think you had a question. You're going to ask the same one? Okay, yeah. I have an interesting background. So You can start at one place and end up in another place. So if you're getting a degree in marketing, you can end up being CIO and go into technology. I fell into technology. I never really loved it, and I've been doing it for a long time. I'm just going to leave it at that, a long time. Anyone else? Final questions? Yes.
How do you maintain like a work-life balance with 5 jobs?
Oh, I love that question. Okay. A lot of meditation, a lot of, I work from home, all 5 jobs from home, so I could do that. And every now and then I have to come here. I've actually presented in this very room a couple months ago doing, I teach faculty how to use Canvas, if any of you used Canvas before. That's kind of my department, what we do. So just a lot of meditation. My son keeps me grounded and busy. Yeah, I think that's about it. And I hope I'm managing it. I learn how to say no. You'll learn that when you get older. At one point in life, it'll click. I heard somebody talk about age, and they were like 30s old. Yeah, okay. Wait till you get my age, and you'll learn how to say no in a nice way, but you'll learn how to say it. Anyone else? All right. If there's no more questions, we're going to get to the fun stuff. So, what we're going to do, I'm going to divide this up. We're going to do something called the diversity thumball toss. So it's like a fun activity with like a volleyball, pretty much. And then we're going to do code switching. How many people are returning and had something similar to this before? How many people were here a couple years ago? Okay. Not me. Okay, so I changed it up because I hate doing the same thing. Every time I present, I like to present new, fresh material. Fresh material. Like I developed the material 2-3 weeks prior, not using the same material. I hate stagnant material. So we're going to first start with the diversity thumball, and that's what it looks like. Tabitha has agreed to help me, so we're going to have 2 groups. We're going to split you off. One group is going to go to this side, one group is going to go to that side. Each person is going to take roughly a minute. You could take maybe a little longer, depends on the teams, or not teams, I don't want to call them teams because you're not competing against anyone. What we are going to do, we're going to toss this little nifty ball that I'm going to show you, and the person that has the ball is the only person that gets to speak. You're not going to interrupt anyone, you're not going to add any comments, you're not going to do any of that, okay? So, I'm going to show you a ball, but I need a volunteer, not Tabitha, I need a volunteer. Who wants to volunteer? I see a hand, come on up, come on up. Tabitha, eyes, because I don't want to hit you in the head. Okay, there we go. Hi, what's your name?
Hello, I'm Maddie. Nice to meet
Hi,
you.
Maddie, nice to meet you too.
Hi.
All right, so here's what we're going to do. I don't know, you can still hear me, right? Okay, so here's this ball. You're going to be in, again, 2 different groups. You're going to be in a circle. And in this circle, we're going to toss this ball. Now, here's what you don't do. You're not going to chuck it to somebody, okay? You're not going to do that. You're going to make eye contact too, because I know sometimes you have introverted people and they look down like, please God, don't throw this ball to me. But if you do that, you're going to hit them upside the head. Everyone has to speak. You can speak and share what you want to share. You hear that a lot. But we want you to be open and engaged in this too. I don't want one-word answers, okay? So here's what you're not going to do. And I'm not going to hit you. You're not going to do this, and you're not going to, try to, no. You're going to toss it. This is what you will do. Toss it, and wherever your thumb lands, look at your right thumb first, okay? Read it to yourself in your head and think, okay, is this something I want to answer? If you don't, look underneath your left thumb and say, maybe this question's more appropriate. First start with the right, then with the left. Read it to yourself, which you're doing now. Process for a second, think about it, and then read your answer. Read the question and then give an answer. So if you like to demonstrate, you don't have to give your answer, but read one of the questions.
Okay, one of the questions was, how do gender norms impact people's opportunities?
God, you got a good one. Okay, good, perfect. So you would think about that for a second and then respond out to the group. The groups are, again, be a little bit smaller, so we'll have time to do it. Again, no more than 30 seconds, a minute. I think we can do a minute or so. But if you're flowing, keep flowing, because the next person may be a little more shy and they may be like, I don't want to talk. So that's what we're going to do first, and then we're going to come back as a group, kind of process that out just a little bit, and then we're going to go into what's called code switching. Any questions? Tabitha, any questions?
Are they reading out the question and the answer?
Yes, you're going to read the question, and you're going to speak up, because you're going to be in a circle. So you're going to speak up just like you did, read the question, think about it for a second, and respond your personal experience. Some of these questions are pretty deep. You may think, this is not fun, this is deep. But you need to get into and think about, okay, do I want to answer it? And if it's something you're uncomfortable with, or the last three people had the same question, you can always look underneath your left thumb. And if you're uncomfortable with both of those, you can pick another one, but I'd rather you not. Okay? Any questions? And then Tabitha, for you and I, once it looks like we're getting down to the last couple of people, I'll either flag you or you'll flag me, like you've got 1 or 2 people left, and then so we can kind of time it. Okay? You don't get to pick your groups. What I want you to do is count off, like 1, 2. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. I hope you know who I'm pointing to. 1 and 2 in the back over there, and then 1, 2, 1, 2. You can figure it out, okay? I don't want you to be with the same people that you sit with, okay? All right, ready? The 1s go over here, the 2s go over here, the 1s are with me. 1s are with me. And hopefully it's an even amount. I didn't count. I'm hoping it's even. Tabitha will figure that out as we go. All right. So how was that for everyone? Did I hear it was brutal? What are your thoughts? I don't normally pick on people, but with this group, I'm going to start picking on people if I don't hear something. What were your thoughts? Were you nervous? Was it good to hear from other people? Yes. Because it could be the same question, but people have different lived experiences, and that's kind of some of the point to that. Someone else may say, well, I don't witness prejudice, or, we heard a comment about some area being inclusive, where someone else could say, no, it's not, So, yep. Anyone else? I thought I saw another hand up, no? Okay, how about this group? What were your thoughts?
Oh, Monica, we did have a hand over here.
We did, okay. Thank you, yes. Here comes the microphone, if you want to use it.
There you go.
I thought the questions were like made really well, like they're open-ended questions, and like I don't know if like they were really clear to some people, but I know that you would have to like have the knowledge to like answer those questions, or the experience to answer those questions and speak on it. So yeah, it was very interesting.
Thank you for sharing that, because a lot of people sometimes hesitate. And I've done this with groups of all white men. I've done it with groups this age, older groups, IT professionals, medical staff, a variety of people. So you get a variety. Some people are laughing and joking, having a good time. Other people are real thoughtful. They're like, wait a minute, what time are you asking, have I experienced prejudice? You mean last week, or you mean today? And other people are like, I've never experienced that. So thank you for sharing that. Anyone else? Yes.
I feel like some of the questions would have taken me like a couple minutes to think of an answer. So it's kind of hard to like on the spot think of an answer.
And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because you have some people who are more introverted and they need to process it. And when the ball's being thrown at you and you got to think quick. And especially you're like, well, wait a minute, first understanding the question and then understanding how much you want to share with the group too. That's kind of where people's anxiety will go up. Because I saw some people were like, okay, I don't know if I want to say this. And other people were like, look, I'm going to say it. I don't care who's in the room. And you get a variety of that. And then you're still processing. And then when the ball is out your hand, you're like, man, I should have said this. And it's okay. We're not expecting, like PhD answers by no means. What comes up first for you and what comes from the heart? One final thought? Anybody else?
Jordan made eye contact with me.
Ah.
What? Wait, I didn't have a question.
I know. What are your final thoughts?
I wasn't even here.
You weren't
I was in
here?
the bathroom. I wasn't here for the question.
All right. Hi, Zane. You didn't make eye contact with me, but you're really close by. Well, what are your thoughts from this activity? Just generally.
I liked how the questions made you think, and everyone had their own articulate answers, and opinions onto certain questions, I guess.
And I like how, like, for instance, I'm glad you shared what you shared. A lot of people are more open about their family and their lifestyle and things, and other people are just like, I don't want to share a lot, because for whatever reason. I know in the workplace, and this is kind of like the workplace, but in the workplace, we have people who work next to each other, and they don't know if they have children, pets, their economic situation. They don't know anything. They just come to work, they do their job, and that's it, and they don't learn about the other people. And sometimes you can do that if you work in a silo, but for the most part, you're collaborating with others, and you can't always do that. So that's kind of the point of that. So I'm going to put her on the spot. What did you think about the exercise?
I really liked it. I think it's a great activity when you can get people thinking and moving at the same time, especially about things that are usually harder to talk about. Sometimes, like you say, people feel uncomfortable talking about their personal experiences, their family situations. There's different levels of comfort, especially in the work environment. There's this expectation that we don't talk about these things, so bringing that in a way that, we're throwing ball. It's fun. I thought it was great. I took a picture of the ball.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted you to share your thoughts on that. Because some people, I can tell some anxiety. I'm pretty good at reading people. And some people are looking like, oh, God, I don't want to do this. And so the people that thought, oh, God, I don't want to do this, did you think afterwards it was okay? And you don't have to raise your hand, but did it change your opinion once you started playing? Yes. Oh, good. Thank you for raising your hand. Okay, I heard most of that, but not all of it. I'm sorry.
I was saying that I was more so nervous on what if I didn't know how to answer the question or not. But once I got my question, I think I answered it pretty well, and I was I got a different opinion on it afterwards. So.
Well, I have to tell you, whatever you said was good. I don't even know what you said, but it was good. If you spoke, it was good. You shared a part of yourself with people that may not know. And that's why I didn't want you to necessarily be in the groups that because you're comfortable, I'm assuming, with the people you're sitting with. But you may not have been comfortable if you sat with other groups. And I'm noticing some of these tables are all one gender. I'm just noticing. That's just an observation. Anyway, so we're going to move on. So our next part is talking about code switch. How many people know what code switching is? Or what does code switching mean to you? How many people know what it is or have an idea of what it is? Have an idea? Okay. Anybody want to share what it means specifically to you before I get into these definitions of what it means? Yeah. Oh.
I'm gonna get all my steps in today.
Tabitha's running.
I think that code switching is changing up your body and tone for different things.
Mm-hmm. Now, if you don't mind, what's your name?
Danasia.
Okay, Danasia, do you feel comfortable sharing if you've ever done that before?
Yes, maybe on a call or something, if I'm calling a job or the bank or something, change up my tone and I don't know. I don't really know how to explain it.
Well, no, you've already explained it. That's good. That's good. Thank you. Thank you for being open to share that, too. Anybody else want to share what code switching means to you? Or how many people, and we're going to get into, if you don't know what it is, what that means, but I just want to kind of see how many people have thoughts prior to this information I'm about to share. Anyone else? Okay. So I'm going to tell you what code switching means to me. So first of all, well, maybe I'll hold off on that for a second because I want to give you a definition first. So code switching, we did a lot with the social identity wheel. I do classes with social identity. I do classes on microaggression, allyship, anti-racism, all sorts of stuff. And when we talk about the social identity wheel and the social identities that we hold, there are some identities that you feel like you have to kind of change or kind of tone down or change your tone, like you said, or your dress or whatever it is. And why you have to do that is the most important part. It's the why, because you are trying to fit in to maybe what's called the dominant group, whatever group that is. It could be race, it could be gender, it could be religion, whatever that is. Which identity do you think has the most effect on your interactions with others? Now, for me, when I think of identity, like with the social identity worksheet, I've done that a million times with people. And the two things I think about the most, of course, would be race and gender, right? There's one other thing that I'm starting to think a lot about that most of you from the comment that I heard earlier that you never think about, and that's your age. I'm starting to think about that more and more. I've been thinking about that. But now it's really starting to take a toll on me because when I go to apply for jobs and they see I've got 20 years plus experience, they're like, oh, she's old. You know, why do we want to hire her? She's probably going to retire in 20 years or 15 years or less or whatever. So code switching is making that adjustment for the dominant group. Again, it's not always race. Usually it's race or gender. So I want to share a video. Now this part, I hope it works.
Okay. In my case, that
Okay.
unintentional
Wait,
education.
we're going back. We're going back. Okay, here's the video. I'm not going to share the whole 10 minutes, but I want you to watch carefully this video. This will sum it up for you. Can everybody hear this?
3 years ago, after moving back from Berlin, I had an experience with local law enforcement. I was living in an old family house at the time, but without a car. So typically, even when I was home, there would be no car out front. One afternoon, as I was going through old memories and moving around what seemed like to be 1,000 boxes, the blinds in my spare room were being shifted to and fro, as I was generally just cleaning out the space. My neighbor, an elderly woman, took it upon herself to be the unofficial neighborhood watch. And so seeing the blinds moving back and forth and no car out front in the driveway, she deduced that my home was being burglarized on a Sunday at noon and called the police. As I continued to clean, I was pretty unaware of what was going on outside of my house, but audible and unfamiliar voices prompted me to pause my cleaning activities and to go outside just to see what was going on. The scene that I encountered when I opened my front door is one that I will never forget. 4 police officers with guns drawn, one pointed directly at me, were surrounding my front porch. "Get out of the house, hands in the air now!" I froze. Up until this point, I had never actually seen a real live loaded gun this close to me, much less had one pointed in my direction. Now I'm here before you today because I obviously survived that encounter. I was able to collect myself enough to answer questions and prove that I had every right to be in that property. But what if I had not looked like me? What if I had not spoken like me? What if the person who opened the door looked like a thug? Whatever image that pops into your head when I use that word, what if the person who opened the door had not been able to collect themselves in the face of grave danger, confusion, and potentially even death to prove that they had the right to be on that property? What if I had expressed rightful anger for being mistreated by police in my own home? What if I had been a black man instead of a black woman? I raise these questions to illustrate the role that behavior plays as it relates to code switching. As a kid, I was inadvertently forced to learn to code switch, and perhaps in my case, that unintentional education saved my life. Code switching as a concept is really interesting. By definition, it's what happens when people who speak multiple languages alternate between 2 or more, oftentimes within the same phrase or sentence. In a more colloquial sense, code switching is what happens when people reflexively or subtly change the way they express themselves. So for someone like me, and I'm sure many of you all here, I thought up until about 4th grade that y'all was the correct contraction for you all. It was only after some point around 9 or 10 that I learned that you all was the correct way to address a group of people, and that I should absolutely use you all, not y'all, when addressing important people and situations. As our world continues to be connected through technology of all sorts, apps and the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence, I guess code switching makes a lot of sense as people from different backgrounds continue to come into close contact with one another. But when we look more closely at code switching and who's expected to make the switch, we discover a hidden reality. And that reality is that the expectation of code switching threatens true diversity. My first day of 3rd grade was at a new school, as I had recently been accepted to the gifted program, which meant that I would be bused from my neighborhood school of West Side to Tomoka, in the next city over. The year was 1992, and so on the first day of class, I proudly donned my favorite Jodeci pleather new boots and my cross-color short set. To say that I stuck out like a sore thumb would be a grave understatement. My new classmates were in polite pastels and ribbons and bows and Kids Gap and limited to fashions. I knew immediately that if I was gonna fit in and make friends, I would have to change more than just a few things. So over the course of the next few years, I learned acutely how to do just that. I stopped wearing my Jodeci boots. I started choosing softer colors as opposed to the bright hip-hop colors and fashions that I had chosen previously. I started listening to Green Day, and I eventually learned how to act like my new classmates and eventual friends. Most importantly, though, I learned how to align myself not just so that I fit in, but so that I was culturally compatible. And I didn't know it then, but this is where I learned how to code switch and how to behave and speak in a way that made me a non-threatening person of color. As our society grapples with police brutality and protests against such violence have become synonymous with big brand ad campaigns and pop culture, it's a person's behavior which indicates whether or not they have learned the language of effective code switching. There have been countless instances in recent history where a person's ability or inability to code switch has meant the difference between life or death. Are you all familiar with Henry Louis Gates Jr.? Many people know him as the host of the PBS series Finding Your Roots, and still others may know him as an esteemed Harvard professor. Still others of us may remember him also from a 2009 incident involving Cambridge, Massachusetts police when he was arrested for breaking and entering into his own home. No doubt his ability to articulate and him being who he was and being able to explain the situation led to a relatively okay outcome for him, save the public humiliation of being arrested. For those who opt for authenticity, unapologetically deciding to speak with the accents of their homeland or their grandparents, or to wear their hijab, or to say y'all in the boardroom, there are oftentimes very real consequences that can be felt. Consequences like not getting that promotion because the client wants to speak to someone who sounds American, or being jeered at for wearing symbols of pride from your culture, while other people who appropriate that same culture make the pages of Vogue magazine. Or being told by HR or administration that your natural hair is inappropriate for work or school and will need to be changed to avoid disciplinary action. For those who aren't even deciding against code switching because they haven't learned it, the consequences can be even bigger.
All right, I'm just going to stop it because this is a 10-minute video, and we don't need to necessarily watch the whole 10 minutes. I think you get the gist of it. What were some of your thoughts about that video? Some of the terms I know were like Jodeci, I'm assuming. Do any of y'all know who Jodeci is? Okay, I'm just saying. What were your thoughts? I mean, she said a lot, and if I do urge you look at the next 4 minutes of this video as well. Can any of you identify with what she's saying? Yeah. You know, yes, please.
Oh, so sorry.
Yes.
So, I don't know. I guess I do have ADHD, and so my behavior can get really childish and out of control. So, in different environments, like with my closer friends, I just let myself go and I just act however I want to. But in a more professional environment or at school, I try to force myself to focus a little more and to just control myself.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, that comes up during a time with police brutality where mental health, especially black men that have mental health, will get shot and killed just because they're acting a certain way, because they have a mental disorder potentially. And without people, you know, first stepping back saying, okay, why is he acting kind of, you know, different? They need more training about mental health and what that looks like, because it comes in a variety of forms as well. So thank you for sharing that. Anyone else wish to share? Yes.
I think I noticed that code switching was more so for. Well, I could just talk.
Oh.
Like this. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
I saw that code switching was more predominantly for people of color, and seeing that when they were in the minority were people more so were not of color or a different age group, that they more so changed how they were to better the situation. And that she also pointed out that some people who like aren't doing the code switching could have a different effect, such as police brutality for someone who wouldn't switch to where they are.
Yeah, and that's okay. I'm gonna try to hold back, but the fact that you have to change who you are, first of all, that's not being authentic. You always hear people say, "Bring your authentic self to work or school or whatever that it looks like." How many people are actually doing that? I mean, think about it. You have to wear a suit and tie. How many people walk around with suit and ties? Nobody does. I mean, you have to act and speak a certain way, especially if you're a person of color. You know, that could mean the difference of you getting a promotion, getting that stretch job, that, a new job. The interview, I mean, I've sat on interview panels for interns and for regular staff, and the interns are usually like your age, and it's amazing how my colleagues will rate African American, some dialect, they rate that differently. They're like, oh, but they didn't speak articulate enough. And I'm like, huh, what? I mean, but they have all these degrees. They've been proven that they can do the work and all, so, and I always listen and I try to interject where I can to make sure that everyone has an even playing field, regardless of their dialect, their dress, whatever it is. And sometimes that's hard because we all have bias. So that's a whole nother class, trust. But thank you for sharing that. Anybody else want to share something? Either related to the video or not. And again, please watch this video all the way through because she puts it, and that's why I just actually sit down and let her talk about it because she shares practical stories that I'm sure a lot of you, if you haven't encountered, unfortunately, you probably will on some level. Anybody else? Yes. Yep. Wow. I'm so glad you shared that. That is profound because I never really thought about that. That especially, well, and I don't want to get too much into it, but especially, let's say, hypothetically, maybe your white family is racist towards part of your, so I'm not, right. So you have to kind of tote that line a little bit. I'm not gonna, because that's very good. I'm glad you shared that because you may feel like you always have to educate one side or the other. So you're in that kind of, thank you. Yeah, a gray area where you want to educate, but you don't want to deny, and you want to, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, it could be very sticky to say the least. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move on because that leads into talking white. What is the problem with the above statement, talking white, first of all? What's the problem with that? Yes. I'm sorry, if you could get the microphone.
Like, talking white is basically talking proper, in a sense, is what I hear when they say, like, oh, you're talking white or something like that.
Yeah. Yes. I have a lot of things when it relates to that. I grew up in Detroit, but I went to a Catholic school for 12 years. And I always spoke this way. And I remember somebody came up to me and said, "You must live in Southfield, Oak Park." Now, back then, that was like, you were living outside the city. And I said, "No, I live on Linwood and Puritan." And they're like, "Oh my God." And if anybody knows Detroit area, Linwood and Puritan is not, it's Linwood and Puritan. And they were totally shocked by that because they were like, "Well, you talk white." I said, "I talk what?" I'm like, "I don't talk white." Because the last 4 years of high school was all black. There was only one white girl. This school was a Catholic school called St. Martin de Porres, who was actually black. And it was only one. I didn't think I talked white. And I didn't grow up around a lot of, I grew up just with 80% black people, maybe 20% elementary school, but that was okay. And I never understood what they meant by that. I mean, what do they mean by that? Talking white, is that supposed to be better? So I saw a hand up. Yeah, yeah. The high school's gone, but the elementary school is Jesu, and they had some white people in the school as well, and Filipinos and everybody. You know, but that's not where I picked up my dialect. I don't think. I just talk the way I talk. I never thought about it until ironically, until I went to an all-black school. That's when I thought about it, ironically. When people were telling me I needed to think about it, I'm like, I do? Well, I don't understand. Because when I was younger, diversity, equity, inclusion work wasn't really profound back in those days. It was black, white, that was it. There was not a lot of mixture, especially growing up in Detroit area at that point. Do we have another question? Yeah, yes.
Like on the negative side, it can be seen as like erasing your identity. I know my mom, like, she doesn't really care now, but like, she would talk about how people would always say like she talks talks white, and that's always bothered her and like gets her annoyed.
Yeah, it bothered me because I don't think I talk white or black. I think I just talk. I don't put a race on how I speak. But I will share a quick story, is that I taught software applications back, everybody knows how to use Google now and Microsoft and all that. But there was a time, believe it or not, that people didn't know how to use those. Anyway, I was a teacher. I used to teach high-level Excel classes and all that kind of stuff. And all my evaluations said, she speaks so proper, or she's so articulate. Oh, she speaks so well. I'm thinking, why is that of interest to you? I'm teaching you Excel macros and formulas, technical stuff. I'm a techie. But all you can focus on, oh, she speaks so well. That tells me their expectations were low, first of all, that this African-American woman, who actually at that time was in her mid-20s, so I was young too, so that was another stereotype, that a young person couldn't be smart in this technical area, let alone an African-American woman. So the only thing they could say is, oh, she spoke so well. And they gave me great reviews, but I think they gave me great reviews because I believe their expectations were down here. So if I just spoke halfway decent, they were going to be like, oh my God. And I'm thinking, what is the problem with this? So when you hear things like talking white, it does, like you said, erase your identity, and what makes white speech, or the perception, I should say, of white speech better than the way you talk. Like you said, you're on the phone and you got to change up your dialect. So, all right, so I know we're running out of time. We all do it. I don't know. Do we all do it? How many people, and I'm speaking of people mainly of color, have code switched before? Raise hands. It's pretty much, yeah. Exactly. Now, not saying that the people that are not of color don't do some form of that, but when we're talking code switching, we're mainly talking about the race and even gender, perhaps. Think about when you have to. And I'll give you an example. Well, I don't know if you've experienced this, but where it's a male-dominant space and you feel like you have to have more, speak a little more authoritative, because, you want to match your male counterparts. That could be a part of that as well. So the reason and consequences are not always equal. I like how she said, if you don't code switch, you could die in some situations. And I love how she said, whatever your version of thug, when you think of thug, because my version of thug is not probably some of your versions of a thug. They come in different races. Women can be thugs too, So, but if you can't switch it, you could potentially die in this society. And that's the fact. A lot of you may disagree with me. That's fact. Pressure to code switch is rooted in racism and white supremacy, point blank. And I don't have to like beat this down. You can look at the news and see this happening every day. And code switching is tied to power in society. Whoever's in power, that's who we're switching for. I'll repeat that. Whoever's in power, that's who we're switching for. All right, so the function of switching, changing the way you talk, we've already kind of went over this, changing the way you talk to hide a part of your identity. But why do we do it? So it happens involuntarily sometimes. Sometimes it does. Sometimes now, I would love to be talking to you with jeans and some combat boots on, just regular. But I wanted to dress up. So I'm switching even my style of dress. You know, I didn't switch my hair for you. I'm sorry. You know, I could have, you know, pressed it out and did all that. No, this is who I am. I wed it, and this is who I am. I'm not code switching right now. I don't want to code switch right now because I want to be authentic. Because don't you hate presenters that pretend to be a certain way, and then you're thinking, I'm not learning. I am as real as they get, okay? And I talk this way when I present. I may switch a tad if it's white executives, but not too much. Because at the end of the day, they're like, oh my God. I'm like, oh, I'm doing a good job. If you come out comfortable from my sessions, I am not doing a good job. Because diversity can be painful. And you got to like get into it and understand the diversity, the equity, and the inclusion. There are 3 different levels. Levels too for some. But anyway. We want to fit in. Is that why we code switch? Like she said, I want to fit in. I want to have friends, you know? So I have to get rid of the Jodeci and all the, you know, I have to fit in. But at the end of the day, that's got to be painstaking. Because not everybody has to go through the code switching. Most people, and I see people, and I'm so proud, when people come out of who they are, and they do what they want to do and act the way they want to do, how they want to act. It's about survival. We already touched on that. Blending in to learn and then making that change. Yes, this is why we could do it. I disagree with that because I don't want to ever blend in. I'm never a blender. I haven't blended in since a long time. I don't like to blend because when I blend, I'm not happy. Unless I choose to do it. But if I choose to do it, that's one thing. I feel uncomfortable because when you code switch, the hands that went up, how many people actually felt comfortable when they were switching? It's like the superhero. You got to switch out, you know. And then at the end of the day, aren't you exhausted? Or is that just me? It's exhausting. Right. And then to better convey a thought or express ourselves. These are some of the ways that we do code switch. So I got 1 minute left. What are some of the pros and cons of code switching? Quick. I'm going to start calling on folks because I got 1 minute. Anybody? I'm sorry? You sound smarter if you code switch. Okay, yes. Yes. Anybody else? Yes. More opportunities may become available to you, especially when you're in the workplace. I mean, let's just be real about it. Yes. It can save your life, yeah. Yes, yes. More accepted at work, yes.
A con it can become stressful
Yeah.
when you're not being yourself.
It's exhausting when you're not being yourself. I would be exhausted right now if I had to pretend to be a certain way. This is how I talk, actually. I don't, because this is just me. If I was, I could change up too and be very, yes, and calm and, no, we all need to get along. No, that would be irritating, actually, I think, to some of you. Anybody else? Yes. I love that. You're going to be a diversity, equity, inclusion warrior. I can tell. I see him in the room. I see him. Great. Yes. Because you don't achieve real diversity because everybody's trying to mold into this little box. I'm not one to be put in a box, and neither should you. You should, maintain your true identities and be authentic. And sometimes it may be tricky. It may be tricky. You have to kind of figure out what you need to leave in and what you need to take out. So I am over by 1 minute. So I thank you, but I will leave you with this. You have a long path ahead of you in the workplace, school, whatever. Remain authentic, remain true to yourself, whatever that looks like, based on race, gender, sexual orientation, accessibility, disability, whatever, religion. Be true to yourself. All right, I'm done.
Thank you, Monica. All right, how we feeling after lunch? I like to see thumbs. So how we feeling? How we feel about chelas? Yeah. Okay, great. All right, so let's get into the elements of workplace communication. So
let's talk about the clarity of the message. Pretty quick. Oh, I'll get us back. There we are. Okay, so clarity of the message. So you're going to want to think about the goal. There we go. Of your communication, and you're going to want to be clear with your audience about the message and ask yourself about what the best way to convey this goal is, okay? So you really want folks to understand what you're saying, the way the project or whatever it is. That way, see where my communication's a little off. Chayla's just really got me, okay? So let's start over, shall we? So you really want folks to understand what you're saying. That way the project or whatever it is can move forward with everyone on the same page. So some things to consider might be, what is the goal of your communication and what are you trying to convey? These need to be solidified before you communicate, okay? So let's talk about an example. If I G-chat my good friend Mel, and I'm like, hey Mel, the Google form, and that's all I say. Mel, what are you gonna say back to me? Huh? What are you talking about? But if I send another G-chat and I say, hey Mel, here's the Google form for song suggestions so that we can put this in the PD recap so that we can have song suggestions for the Midsummer Celebration, much more clear, right? We know what we're doing, why we need it, and what the goal of the communication is. Do you see how that works? If I was like, Maddie, the Google form, what are you gonna say to me? You're gonna look at me, right? Yeah, okay. So you see what I'm saying with communication? Clear? So what is the goal of your communication and what are you trying to convey? Okay? So now I'm going to pass it to my good friend Ben. Oh, shoot. There we go.
All right, we're going to do the slide here on checking understanding. So it's important that you get feedback when you're communicating. Sometimes if you're doing a task together and you need to be clear on what you're doing, you can ask for feedback, potentially say, you know, what would you change to what I've done, or what do you think about the plan? Really just asking the person you're working with for feedback, making sure they've heard what you've had to say, and also giving them the opportunity to share back with you. Similarly, it's important that you try, you know, maybe paraphrasing or reflecting back on what's been shared. So an example of paraphrasing, anyone want to define paraphrasing for me? Got someone back here. Exactly, yep. Yep. So if someone, you know, say you're gonna visit France, right, and someone says, make sure you check out this whole big list of these amazing artworks. You want to make sure you check those out. Paraphrasing would just be, make sure you see the art museum, right? Really just funneling all they had to say down to one keynote of, I should probably go to the Louvre if I'm in France, right? And by doing that, you know, if you're talking with someone, especially on a project, and they've come to you with a lot of ideas, paraphrasing back what you heard can let them know that you've listened to what they've had to say and you've also thought about what they've had to say, okay? So I'm going to send it over to Tabitha.
All right, friends, so we're going to talk about taking turns on professional communication. So this is something that everybody can work on, and I'm not just talking about participants, I'm talking about me as well. So if you're someone who speaks up a lot or someone who speaks up a little or someone who's in kind of in between, there's something in this for you. So with professional communication, especially in large, diverse groups, it's super important to be intentional about not just how much you're participating, but how much you're engaging, and also how much everyone else is. So I'll use a personal example. So for me, in case you hadn't guessed it, I'm someone who likes to share a lot. I like to talk, I like to be engaged, and sometimes in a classroom setting, because I'm in school right now, I find that it can make other people not want to talk, or it makes people talk less because they'll know if they don't raise their hand, eventually I'll raise my hand and I'll share, or I'll give an answer. So I've learned that I need to learn, okay, sometimes I need to wait 5 seconds. Well, I'll count to 7 seconds in my head, whatever it is in the given situation, and then I'll volunteer information. Or sometimes if I've shared 4 times in this 2-hour class, I'm not gonna share anymore for the rest of the class. I'll still take notes and I'll still participate in small group discussion, but just being mindful of how much you're engaging. It's a little bit different in a large group like this, but just kind of reading the room and being aware. And what that looks like on the other end, if you're someone who doesn't speak up a lot, just being aware, okay, so move up is what it says on the slides, and that's exactly it. So just being, okay, thinking about what ways am I comfortable participating. If you're someone who does not want to be handed that microphone that we run around with and share to the group, that's fine. It's just being self-reflective about what that participation looks like for you. So maybe you share a little bit more in cohort time, or so the group that stayed with Monica and myself, maybe you share a little bit more when we pass around that ball. So just being mindful of how much you share, how much other people are sharing, and just trying to hold space for everyone while also giving your voice, because no matter who you are, where you're coming from, you have something that someone else doesn't have. You have yourself. So we want to hear what everyone has to say and what everyone's thoughts are, so we can be that diverse group that we're trying to be. All right. What questions can I answer about this? Beautiful. All right, and I'm passing this to Morgan.
I'm back. So let's talk about active listening. So, without these, what are some ways that you can kind of show that you've been actively listening to someone in a discussion? Yeah. Eye contact, right? I'm locked in. Perfect. Yeah. Asking questions. Beautiful. Y'all are killing it. Yeah. Nodding your head. Absolutely. Oh, yeah. Everybody loves this. Absolutely. Body language, right? All of these things really demonstrate that you are locked in, that you are in this conversation, right? They all demonstrate active listening, okay? So active listening means that you are staying engaged with what the communicator is saying. It's an important skill to build in both your professional and your personal relationships. So some ways to engage in active listening, other than what we've heard, which were phenomenal, thank you all so much for engaging in that with me, would be paraphrasing, okay? So like we discussed, putting something in your own words is a great way to display that understanding and that active listening. Next, asking questions about what you heard and what was said. This will clear up any misunderstanding that happened during the communication. Next, you can display empathy, okay? So being empathetic to what someone has to say not only displays some understanding, but it also helps to maintain an inclusive work environment, which is something that we also talked about a few weeks ago. And then you really want to be intentional about choosing the right method. So we have many ways to communicate, and especially at work, it's important to choose the appropriate channel. Be mindful that written communication is very different from verbal communication, and it may be received in different ways, right? So you have tone, delivery, all of those things, right? Those can't really be picked up in an email, in a text, so just be careful. Written also tends to be more formal and usually requires time to receive feedback, whereas verbal communication requires responses in the moment, right? So if Tabitha and I are in a discussion, it's boom, boom, boom. But if I text her, it might be a little bit of a delay, or an email. Does that make sense? Any questions about active listening? Beautiful. I'm going to pass it over to my good friend Mel to cover self-awareness.
All right, besties. What is self-awareness? This is one of those ones where the word is the definition of the phrase. So let's try that again. What is self-awareness? Yes. It is awareness of the self. Ding, 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 ding. You got it. $10,000, brand new car, just for you. It's waiting outside. It's waiting outside. So self-awareness, right, is knowing yourself. And in addition, it is being aware of yourself. I just said that. And particularly related to like emotions or the ways you show up, right? Being able to control and express your emotions, right? So knowing the ways that you respond in tense situations, knowing ways that you respond during conflict, right? Maybe knowing that like in face-to-face interactions, you actually don't like making eye contact, which is fine, right? So what are some other ways that you can show someone that you are engaged in the conversation, right? That you're listening to what they have to say, right? Maybe it's the nodding, maybe it's a good, love a good, Maybe it's a yes, you got it, right? Lost my train of thought. So, 95% of people believe that they are self-aware, but in reality, there's only a small percentage of people that are self-aware. What percentage do we think that is? I left it blank so you guys can't figure it out. We got what? I heard 25, 35, 5, 50? 0, 15. The correct answer is 10 to 15, right? People are actually self-aware, right? So it's important for us to be self-aware, right? To know how we react to certain situations, knowing the ways that our emotions show up, right? Because I will speak for myself. I get told all the time that I need to fix my face because sometimes I have no way of controlling my reactions to something. So like if someone says something in a meeting that's like absolutely out of pocket, I will be like, and in a workplace setting, that might not be the most professional way to respond to something, right? So we need to be aware of ourselves. Like, I know that's something that I need to work on, right? My face says more than my words do, and my words say a lot because I talk a lot, right? So we have to be able to reflect, we have to be self-aware, and we have to be able to kind of control those reactions, right? Okay. It's you, Dallas. Appropriate body language.
So, excuse me. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. And I'm talking to everybody. Keep going. Keep going. I ain't doing nothing. I'm chilling, right? Big chilling right there. All of that, right? So this is a pretty good depiction of what appropriate body language is and or isn't, correct? Even though you might catch me doing that on purpose. I'm sorry, just naturally. I was doing it on purpose this time. But the point is, as you guys can see on this slide, my body language, it kind of conveyed different messages, right? Maybe I wasn't interested, or maybe I'm tired, maybe I'm dropping stuff. Either way, it gave a message that was not conducive with the environment that I'm in, correct? This is PD, professional development. I got my shoes off, I'm slouching, chilling, I'm on my phone, all of that. I know I kind of touched on it. I like help. Somebody read this for me, please. Anybody? Go for it. Loud and proud. Somebody. Yeah, second line for me too. So the message that I was giving off were all of those things that I just named off, plus 50 other things that you guys are thinking on your own. Nobody's wrong, everybody's right. Professionalism is maintaining attentive, focused, and generally positive appearances, right? So maybe, matter of fact, tell me what I could have done differently. Say that one more time. Right. She's looking at my audience. That's one. Anybody else? Go for it. Sitting straight up. Yeah, that's another. What else? I could keep my shoes on. What if my feet stink, right? That's one thing. You was about to say that? Twinsies. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. So she was even looking at me before it was even my turn, realizing it was my turn, and I'm still back there sitting down. So there's a multitude of things that I could do to kind of change my appearance, my performance. Not one that's going to jeopardize who I am, but come on now, we all know right from wrong, right? And obviously I had planned to do this the incorrect way. But who's next? I think Kathleen is next.
Alrighty, so we're skipping ahead a little bit because we're a little short on time. So we're going to jump to an activity and then we're going to come back and talk about conflict. But kind of when thinking about communication, it's also important to think about conflict and also in the workplace thinking about how our social identities may show up in conflict. And so we are going to do a reflection. So Tabitha and Morgan are passing out some, basically they're like a little quiz on what your type of conflict management style is. And so there are 15-ish questions, and you want to take a look at them and answer them. I don't have one in front of me. Ben, can you hand me that? I need one. Okay, so for example, number 1 says, I discuss issues with others to find solutions that meet everyone's needs. So if that applied to me, I would say always or often. If it doesn't, I would say rarely or sometimes. So go through 15 of these questions, circle what applies to you. And then there's a scoring on page 2, but we will come back to that. But I'll give everyone a few minutes to look through the questions. Thumbs up if you're done, thumbs down if you need more time. All right, I'm seeing mostly thumbs up, so we're gonna go ahead and move to the next part. So hopefully you were able to identify which aspect you are. If you have a tie, then you're in between or you're both of them. But show of hands, who is an owl? Collaborating. Okay. Who is a turtle? Avoiding turtle. Couple turtles. Shark, competing. It's a shark. We got some sharks. All right. Accommodating, teddy bear. All right, lots of teddy bears. Tabitha does not surprise me. And then compromising, fox. All right, see some foxes. Cool. All right, so basically kind of what each of these mean is, how, and no one way is the right way. Everyone treats conflict differently. You also may treat things differently whether you're at home or with friends or at work. So it all depends on the situation you are in. But just to kind of highlight, an owl collaborates, so they value both their goals and the relationship. They will try and make everyone happy, but also get what they want at the same time. The con of this is it takes a long time. It's really hard. You have to kind of go in circles. A turtle, you do not like confrontation. You avoid it at all costs, and you pretend like things don't happen. So that can be good and bad because it's sometimes less drama, but, then you might not get what you want. Shark, competing. So this means you really go after what you want. Your goals are really important to you. And sometimes, you may hurt some feelings, and that's okay if you get what you want. So, and a lot of sharks are really successful people. I like, businessy type people, like powerful CEOs, they get what they want, right? So some things to aspire to if you're into that. Accommodating teddy bear. So this means you basically just go along with whatever makes people happy. You don't really try to put yourself in conflicting situations. You don't avoid conflict, but you're like, I'll do whatever makes the most people happy. I want people to be happy. And then compromising is a mix of, they're again worried about their goals and their relationships, but they do a give and take. They see it much more as I'm willing to give in on this if I can get that. It's very much back and forth, and sometimes you lose, sometimes you win. It depends on the situation. So those are the overall types of conflict management style. Oops, we're not going that way. The slides are all out of order, so give me a second. Oh, Mel, I realized we didn't do this, but I did a show of hands. Okay. You've been deactivated. I don't know what that means. Oh, well. Okay. So thinking about your results with your table, I want you to talk about what surprised you or what resonates with you, and how do you think conflict has shown up in your life? Is it at home? Is it at work, school, friends? And how do you tend to manage that? So take about 5 minutes, talk with your table or a partner at your table. All right. I really hate to cut these conversations short, but I really want to make sure that we get through everything. So now that you know what your conflict management style is, I wanted to go through just, some tips and tricks for handling conflict, because it's a part of life, whether it's a daily occurrence or just every now and then. No matter what, it's going to happen, and we want to make sure that you all have the tools to be able to handle conflict, especially in the workplace. So first, what is conflict management? It's an adaptive process, which means it'll look different depending on every situation, through which disputes are resolved through a variety of different techniques, depending on the situation. So, and kind of what that looks like. First, how to manage conflict. So first, accepting it. It is a part of life, and it's natural and likely to occur. And rather than avoiding it, really try to learn how to manage it, and think about, equipping yourself with tools to be able to do that. It can also be, when conflict happens, a sign that some things need to change, whether that's maybe like your job might not be a good fit, and so you want to find something else. Or, maybe if it's a friendship and you're in conflict a lot, like maybe it's not a friendship you should be in. A variety of different things. So it just depends on the situation, but it can also mean that change is natural and it's going to happen. Be a calming agent. It is important to stay calm and escalate, and not escalate, de-escalate. And also, it can also, when you're working with others, remaining calm, being a calming presence can help, especially when it's a group conflict and there's many different people involved. Actively listening, which we talked about earlier. So hopefully you all have some knowledge on that now, but work through how you're feeling, the specific problems, and make sure to listen to one another, especially those who are involved, and work together. So all conflict is about relationships and goals, and so balancing those two and doing the best that you can. So making sure that you're working together and making a commitment to work together, continue to work together, and have a positive environment, even when there is conflict, to work through it. In terms of managing conflict, the first step is analyzing the conflict. So it's important to know what the specific problem is. Has anyone been in a situation where maybe a friend or a sibling's mad at you and you have no idea why? Yes, okay, see some head nods. And you're like, it would be a lot easier to deal with if I knew what the problem was, but you have no idea. So making sure that, one, you know what the conflict is before you can move forward. It can be helpful to ask questions, thinking about, maybe what triggered the conflict, what is that person not getting that they need or they want to be successful. Focusing on the future. A lot of times conflict can build up and can be a result of past things that have happened, and so making sure that you have space for past issues, but also focusing on the future. And recognizing the past, but moving forward in a positive direction. Separating the person from the problem. So this one's a little straightforward based on the wording, but what do you think that might look like, separating the person from the problem? Yeah, Trinity? Yeah, absolutely. So looking at it objectively, definitely. So viewing the issue at hand as a specific behavior or a set of circumstances rather than focusing on the person as who they are or any other things that may have happened. Was that a hand or no? Okay. And then it's also important to maintain confidentiality. So when you are in conflict, it's a lot easier on everyone if you just keep things to those who need to be involved, and making sure that everyone is feeling respected and confidentiality is maintained. Some more conflict management tips. I'm just really speeding through this, everyone. I know it's a lot at once, but almost done. Making sure that you model neutral language, so not accusatory language, trying not to preference one person or over another, especially if you're like the mediator in a conflict situation. To agree to disagree, no one is going to be 100% on the same page as you with everything, and so being sure that you recognize that it's okay to disagree on things, but make a plan for a path forward, and thinking about a shared resolution. Move past positions. Try not to be so tied to your position or stance. If you're willing to make compromises, offer them up, saying, for example, I'm going on vacation next week. And, if someone that I was working with was like, I was planning on taking vacation at the same time, like, how are we going to deal with this? And so thinking about how you can make I keep trying to say path and plan at the same time, but, okay, well, maybe you take the first half of the week and I take the second half of the week and we rearrange our schedules. Or, okay, I'll take it this time, but next time, I'll get priority first. And so making sure that you're compromising and you're willing to, make some adjustments as necessary. But also boundaries are important too, so keep that in mind. That was just my first example that came to my head. Be reminded of your shared interest. Why are you there? What are you trying to get done? And keep that in the back of your mind. So, whatever your goal is, everyone's going to have a different idea of how to do it, how to get it done. But just remind yourselves of the goal and how to stay on track to meet your goal. Getting creative. So also give yourself time. Don't just jump to the easiest solution. Sometimes it does take creativity to be able to find a solution that makes everyone happy. And then be specific. So again, we were talking about communication earlier and how different different things can mean different things to different people. And so especially in conflict, it's important to be on the same page. So if you do find a path forward, making sure that everyone knows their role and that it's clear and you have specific tasks and avoiding ambiguity. So conflict management styles. Exactly at 1:30. But does anyone have any thoughts or comments, or has anyone faced any challenges so far in their internship where they've had to deal with a conflict? Maybe how you've handled that? All right. So nobody move yet, but we are going to break off into reflection groups in a minute.